So I'm going to make sure that we all know who Brian actually is. So I'm going to read his bio. So Brian Brackeen is a general partner at Lightship Capital, the Cincinnati-based VC fund dedicated to backing underrepresented entrepreneurs in the Midwest. As general partner, Brian oversees fund operations, leads the AI development team, and serves on the investment committee. Prior to Lightship, Brian founded the Miami-based face recognition innovator Kairos.
305, holla.
215, but we'll get into
We'll get to that.
it. His leadership saw the company selected by the Wall Street Journal as one of the top 25 startups in the country and positioned Kairos alongside tech giants like Microsoft and Face++ as one of the world's foremost face recognition software providers. Kairos has processed nearly a billion faces and has raised more than $15 million from investors. Also, importantly, under Brian's leadership, Kairos took a strong stand against the government's use of facial recognition and worked hard to eliminate racial bias from its data sets. Prior to founding Kairos, Brian served as a senior project manager for Apple and as a senior managing consultant at IBM. In addition to his work at Lightship, Brian lectures extensively around the world on entrepreneurship, code, the digital economy, AI, and machine learning. And he also participates in mentorship programs for organizations like Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, and the School District of Miami.
And Miami-Dade College.
And Miami-Dade College, where we are right now. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Brackeen. Awesome. So Brian and I have known each other for a few years. We talked about this session, and we said we're going to have the hard conversation. We're going to go past the headlines, and we're going to talk about some of the hard things. But first, can't have you here and not ask. Tell us a little bit about your journey to being a founder and then your journey now to being an investor and how those two have informed each other.
I'm going to do the short but hopefully interesting version. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, to two parents. One was a Nigerian transfer student. One was an African-American woman from Ohio. Went to Case Western University. It wasn't the right time for them, so put me up for adoption. I had Amish foster parents for a year. So no technology at all, right? All that technology you talked about, literally cloth diapers, candles, the whole nine. And then ultimately adopted by my parents in Philadelphia, which is where I grew up. Rabid Eagles fan. This year, that's a good thing. And one of my first jobs, we didn't talk about this, one of my first jobs when I was 18 years old was Comcast.
Wow.
Yeah. I was the
That's a good job as an 18-year-old.
I was the youngest manager in Comcast history.
Wow.
I was the manager of system support administration. But I didn't want anybody to know how old I was because that would be an issue. Like I had 14 employees. And so they would be like, oh, it's a long week. Let's go to the bar. I'd be like, oh, I'm not feeling well. You know what I mean? You go ahead. Or then my next thing was like, okay, let's do a house party. You guys bring the liquor, I'll bring the food. We'll be, So I did that for a while until they finally figured it out. But after I won their support by the time. Left Comcast, worked at IBM. The big job, though, was at Apple. Got to Apple just after the iPhone launch. Was there all the way through the iPad launch. A period of just crazy growth. Steve was still there. And then one day, caught the startup bug. Friends of friends started Pinterest. And they were like, we went to their office, and they had like a keg in the office. They were drunk every day. And I was like, this is it? This is all you got to do?
Just drinking code.
Just
That's
drinking,
it.
yeah.
That's it. That's how you get a
ignorant. I was so ignorant. But I was like, I could start something. And then only a few months later, resigned and started Kairos. Again, the facial recognition company you talked about, my dining room table. And then before it was cool, did a hard look at where should we start the company? Where should we build it? So we looked at San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, a few other places. And so across the rubric of a number of things, including personal tax, corporate tax, number of coders in our stack, PHP at the time, God forbid. And it turned out that Miami was like number one in all these categories. People weren't really talking about it. And so we moved the company here. It grew like crazy. Sold in 2018 after a fight with the board about privacy and things of that nature. And then became an investor. I had terrible investors, and I wanted to be the investor I didn't have. And so we started a $50 million venture fund. Actually, it's a $25 million venture fund. It's going to be fully subscribed to 50. And we're focused on, again, those groups. We've made 15 investments so far. We'll do 26 by the time it's all said and done, and then we'll start fund two.
Amazing. Love it. So you said a bit of your experience as a founder with investors is what was part of the impetus.
Trash, yeah.
So what do you, because we don't need to give them too much airtime.
No. You
But-
can.
What is it that you do now at Lightship that you wish your investors had been doing for you as a founder, particularly as a Black founder?
It starts with my belief in the divinity of the founder. And I don't think investors really believe that about the very people that they're backing. I believe that if you have a good idea, and I like that idea was delivered to you. And that my job is to support you in building that idea to its largest possible end and protecting you from the other things out here in the world that would keep that end from happening. That could be a knowledge gap, that could be legal, that could be finance, it could be a variety of things. But how do I truly partner with you on this enterprise? And I don't think investors, and I know investors for women and minorities don't always take that approach.
Got it. So Lightship has a specific commitment to women and minority founders. And you had it first. You had it before it was cool, before there were black squares on Instagram, before people who you met at a cocktail party were LinkedIn messaging folks like, I'm here to listen and learn. I've watched the news. I feel for you so much. You were doing it before it was cool, before it was part of the wave. Why is that? Why was that important? Because you could have invested in anything. You have the technical background. You could have chosen any set of founders to go after. Why was it, I am specifically going to invest in women and minority founders?
I think the data supports the investment. If you take I love the work that we do, but if you take the heart out of it and you only use the head, so to speak, one, we invest in the Midwest and the South. And if you start a business anywhere, it should always be Miami, Chicago, Cincinnati, you name it, because these cities are the cheapest place to start and build a business. But after you exit the business, let's say you build it, again, your business we just made up a few minutes ago. It did great, and now you guys are making $500 million a year. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. When Comcast buys you, they're buying you for 3 times revenue, 4 times revenue, 10 times revenue. It doesn't matter. Whatever your revenue is, they're buying for that multiple. So it only makes sense to build the company in the cheapest place to get to that point, and then sell for the highest amount, because that leaves you and me, your partner, rich, which I like.
The math is mathing. I'm sorry. The math is mathing.
Okay, so then that's layer one, right? Layer two, you take people who are the most underinvested, right? So this is the crazy stat, and this is a classic culture shift stat. Classic. Andrea's in the back. She knows all these, in her head. White men, which represent right around 23, 24% of Americans, manage 99.7% of all assets in this country. Right? So when I fish in a pond for founders, I'm literally all by myself in a pond stocked full of fish, right? And so I say to who I love, my white counterparts in San Francisco, like, don't y'all see this over here? How are you not investing in this pool, right? And I think sadly and unfairly, like I said, we'll be 26 investments, but company number 27 was perfectly investable, and 28 and 29 and 1,000, right? And so there needs to be more of us. One, and two, when you get back to the mathing, like if you take a geographic bias and a demographic bias and you put those things together, you create profit. And our tagline is Lightship Capital, we turn bias into profit.
Listen, I love it. You're going to ride that all the way to the bank. all the way.
Hopefully.
All the way.
Or else I got to go back to Apple and work again.
So I want to shift a little bit and talk about kind of the 2022 of things. We've heard the stats. White men control far more than what should ever be mathematically expected based on their population density, the assets they control. They receive far more investment than that population density should also suggest. And that was in the good times. These are bull market stats. And all signs are pointing towards, at best, a slowdown, at worst, potentially a recession. So how is that impacting your thinking about how you're going about investing? And knowing that we have a room full of founders, how should it impact their thinking as they are going about raising money for their company and trying to grow and scale their companies?
There is no better time to give a check to someone who's used to not getting a check when there's less checks out there in the world. This is the right?
So, can you say that one more time?
There's
Because
no better
somebody's going to
time.
need to tweet that, and I want you to get it right before you attribute.
There's no better time to be investing in women and minority founders. Really, no better time. We have operated in this, even in the best years, we don't get our fair share. To your point, right? And so it's kind of a little bit par for the course. I will say, unlike previous recessions, there are now more, not enough, more venture funds focused in this area, and I hope that we can, again, get our fair share.
So for founders, how should they be approaching that? They're hungry, they got to hustle. Any Black founder, Latino founder, woman founder who's gotten one venture check has had to fight and
Yes.
work for that.
Yes.
So how should they be thinking about getting the next checks and quite honestly, the checks they deserve?
Number one, a mindset for abundance. Please remember that the way venture funds are built is we get commitments to our funds for a 10, 11, 12-year period. Our money's baked in. So a recession going up or down in that period doesn't change the way we invest, right? So if we can find somebody that has a great idea and I can invest in it now, like we're in our second year, we have plenty of time for things to turn around. So you should walk into that meeting knowing that that investor isn't operating from a place of scarcity, and nor should you, right? It will lead to better results.
I love that. I love that. So you mentioned, talking to some of your counterparts in Silicon Valley who are just not seeing what you see, not seeing the opportunity, ignoring it, potentially missing a pretty big boat.
We gave them their chance. We gave them their chance. We all took those flights to San Francisco looking for the check.
So
Where is it?
beyond that, what gives Lightship its kind of competitive edge in sourcing great deals and in really building a strong portfolio that's going to get everybody to those exits?
Well, this is part of the sad answer. I think one of the sad answers is we take a couple thousand inbound requests for investment a year, and that shouldn't be necessary, right? Because there are so few kind of options. The other thing is, again, this is another unfortunate answer to that question. There are in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Tennessee, there are total 4 Black women investors in all of those states. 2 of those 4 work for our firm. Right, so 50% of all
50% of the Black women investors in those states
that group of the
are
Midwest.
writing checks for Lightship.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an edge.
So if you are, let's say, a Black woman and you're looking for a Black woman investor and you're in any one of these like 5 or 6 states, you know who Candace is. You might know who Brian is, but you know who Candace is. So you're going to come to us for that reason. I think also we run a conference called Black Tech Week, which was born here in Miami.
Yep.
We bought it last year. Tripled the budget. We expected 500 people. We had 1,500 people come. Serena Williams keynoted last year. We have a big announcement for keynote coming up soon. But for this next year, we're expecting 3 or 4, maybe 5,000 people at Black Tech Week. Well, we've actually we bought out the entire convention center for this year. So
I'm just going to say, I promised Brian I wouldn't say a word. I have not yet said a word, but he told me who that keynote, y'all want to get tickets. I promise you, you want to get tickets. You want to be in the room.
And we thank Comcast for its partnership because you guys were a sponsor of Black Tech Week last year.
Yes, we were, and we hope to be able to sponsor again.
I hope for you too.
So I want to go back because 2020 was an odd year for so very many reasons that we all experienced and we don't need to bring up anymore. Some of us might still have a little shell shock, might be still a little tender in that spot. But one of the things that was interesting was there were so many firms and corporates and individuals that made commitments, that made announcements, that uploaded black squares, that used hashtags they would have never touched before. It was very popular thing to do. It's been pretty quiet. It's been pretty quiet in their intervening 2 years. So I'd love to hear your experience. I'm sure there were some folks who reached out to Lightship, wanted to hop on the wave of what you're building. How many of those people are still around? And for you, what is the differentiator of when you say this person is going to be worth my time engaging with, this person, this organization, this company, and this person is just out for PR and I'm not even going to be bothered?
Yeah, right.
Listen,
Right.
Andrea, I know you have thoughts.
You know it too. Sis.
I ask that not to be shady, but because we have a room full of entrepreneurs, and I want all of us to walk away armed with the benefits of the experience you've had.
Let me first say, if you like spicy takes like this, follow me at Brackeen on Twitter, because I offer a lot of spicy takes like the next one you're about to hear. For the shout outs, there were firms like Delta Dental, like a number of foundations that came into our fund at that time and have been very good and positive supporters. Also, a lot of those firms that were doing it for PR, the way funds work is you don't just invest in the first one, you usually invest in the first, the second, and the third. Mm-hmm. These PR corporation investments are like a one-time. We were just doing essentially, we had to be on the list of people that did something, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're not coming back to these black funds and making those second investments, which puts them at a disadvantage to some of their competitors. So the ones that did come into us have been doing it, I think, the right way. I would add to that, Procter & Gamble, Kroger, others. Kroger, who bought Albertsons today, holla, just so you know, it's Cincinnati, bought the one that's in California, just want to be clear, all cash deal. But then there are a lot of other people, and I'm going to call out one, I think, particularly unfortunate example. We have a bunch of good friends at corporations who try to get us in, and one corporation had a list of venture funds they were looking to invest in, and this is common for white, black, other kinds of venture funds. But the rubric for the diversity funds,
here we go,
were things like return and things of that nature. But one of the last weighted column was social media, right? Which is, why would that have anything to do with fund returns, with your fund? They do not
Andrea,
do that.
Andrea, they don't.
And so, we were below the line. And the other firms that were below the line are amazing, like Marlon Nichols' firm, like amazing firms were below the line, and the ones that had the bigger social media followings were above the line. And some of those, I'm not even want to name those names, but they were not high quality funds. And so
wait a minute, tweeting well doesn't mean you're a good investor?
Hard to believe.
Okay.
Hard to believe. And so that just goes to show they don't actually believe in those investments because they don't care if they get the money back or not. In fact, they're actually not even expecting to get the money back. The return on that investment was the marketing. Mm-hmm. When you're investing in Lightship, you're investing as an investment. And which really means, again, that thesis of geography and demography, you must not believe in our geographies or our demographies. You only believe in social media following, and those corporations are truly unfortunate.
Yeah, sheesh, I heard that. That's right. So what are you hearing from LPs now, either your current or potential LPs you're talking to as you're thinking ahead about Fund 2? Are they, because if you are approaching it in the right way, you're like, this is a long relationship. Yeah. That you read a limited partner agreement, the shortest might be 5 to 7 years. It's typically a decade.
Yes.
Like
if you're lucky, it's 5 years. That's just something good happen. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be really lucky if you made some money in 5 years. So this is meant to be a long-term relationship, and the good LPs understand that and they know that. Are you hearing them kind of adjusting or surfacing any kind of concerns? Because we do have some investors in the audience, folks who might be thinking about raising a fund. Kind of like, what should they be thinking about as they start to navigate this economic situation with potential limited partners?
I would say there are really a couple different camps, and as a shout out for where we are today, I think there are culture shift LPs and then there are non-culture shift LPs, right? So like the people who are here, the people who are connected to the network, right? The people who are like leaning in, those people tend to be doing it the right way. Like the fact that they're here tells you that they actually care. They could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They chose to be here, right? And so for the fund managers in the room, this is the right place to be having those conversations because they're present, and they're present for a reason. And they came here to do deals. They didn't come here for that lasagna or whatever we had, at lunch. Yeah, tasty. It was tasty. Yeah. So that's the first thing. I think the thing for folks that aren't here but maybe just didn't know or truly do care but just weren't available, I think they're still investing, but then it depends on the size.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, for fund managers here, the bigger your fund, don't be afraid to just have a higher number because that allows you to get checks from the more institutional dollars. If I'm Knight Foundation with a $4 billion endowment, the ups and downs of an economic cycle are not changing that process, right? If there's a firm that I met the other day here, there's a $15 billion firm, a spin out of Stanford. They're investing their budget for investing for this year was set in the third quarter last year. It's done, like it's baked. So there's still opportunity there, but I will say that the data shows that these firms are investing more and more dollars into the few bigger funds where they can deploy more capital and less into new firms. And that's why making sure that you actually raise more might allow you to kind of get into the lower end of some of those requirements because they're moving the bar up. But honestly, no one raises Fund 1 or Fund 2 with any kind of real traction. It's really just showing who you are, that kind of thing. So you might as well just raise more and get above that bar so you can get a bigger check from a Walton family or someone.
So for emerging fund managers, for GPs, set the bar higher because it gets you into bigger rooms with bigger players. Does that hold true for founders who are raising in this environment?
Always.
Always raise more?
Yeah. Look, there's a bias here, first of all. I'm a venture capitalist, right? So keep that in mind. But here's what happens is, and this is true for your customers, this is true for investors, whatever. When you go small, when you fish small, you will catch small fish, right?
Say that again.
When you go small, when you fish small, you will catch small fish. And also, let's also be clear, the smaller fish are a pain in the butt.
Say that again
The
as well.
smaller an investor is, the less money. And again, at Kairos, when I had the same issue, I had investors that put $25,000 in the company. When I tell you they wanted to have coffee every 6 weeks, how's that 25 grand going? Come on. You know?
And your $2 million investors,
$2 million, $3 million.
See you next year.
Exactly. It's a completely different thing. But they might have $500 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so investing $1 million or $500,000, they hope for the best, But that's it. So I think that you want to fish big. You want to go big, and that will lead to a lot less stress.
You've said many times that women founders, Black founders, Latino founders, underrepresented founders are over-mentored.
And underinvested.
Didn't even have to finish it.
Well,
don't take me to church. Listen, I was raised Baptist. We can go. I'm always ready. But so over-mentored and underinvested.
Yes.
So we got to get checks in people's hands. First things first.
Yes.
Once you get the check in, what else does a good investor do to see that founder have a return? Because that's what we're all in it for, is to make the money back, then some, and then some, and then some. So you get the check in hands. What else have you seen in your portfolio, in your experience? You get thousands of inbounds. What else is it that people need? Pass the check, because the check is first. Be very clear. You must write the check first.
I have lots of answers, but I'll give just a couple. One, particularly women and minority founders, you need to believe in that founder. And as someone who's lived through this, the white male founder is seen as critical to the enterprise's business, that they must be protected at all costs. And particularly the Black founder, but the further you get from white male, we call it pale male. The further you get from pale male to like the more the different gender and from a color perspective, that person is seen as lucky. Right? And that we can remove this founder and bring in any person, and they'll be just fine. And I'm almost 100% certainty that person runs the thing into the ground, right? And Even in Jobs' case. Even in Jobs' case. So I think protecting the founder at all costs and making sure, like, what we do is we go through their docs and we make sure that it doesn't have just a board seat for the CEO, but a board seat, like, with your name on it.
A board seat for Brian Brackeen.
For Brian Brackeen,
Yes.
right? So because if Miss Dean is going to look at you every single quarter, like, how you doing? You know, they're less likely to give you a hard time, right? So I think that's protecting the founders is number one. But also we do a number of things we call like wraparound. So on our staff, fully paid by us, we employ designers, engineers, creatives, writers, project managers, and then we just do work for the portfolio for free and just help them to build those things up, because we're in this together. And then as soon as we finish that project, we go away. You tell us when you need us, and we do the next thing for the next founder. But I think by doing that, by really truly partnering, is key. And then the last thing we do, I think, which we do a great job of, is we're really good at working with our investors, which are corporations. And so we can go to like a Procter & Gamble and say, look, you guys are already invested, so you might as well help us. What do you need? What are you looking for? What are you looking? And we'll take that, what they're looking for. We will give that information, that knowledge to the founder of that firm. They will build up that capability. Ultimately, we will then sell that company back to our very investors, for a success for all of us.
I love that. I love that. Protect the founders comes first.
At all costs.
Invest in them and then protect them. Brian, I have to say thank you so much. You've been so open, so honest, and we're having the conversations that we can only have in these kinds of spaces. They don't happen at South by Southwest. They're not happening at these massive, 5,000, 6,000 person, broadly based kind of conferences. They're happening in these spaces. So I really want to thank you and appreciate you for coming here and being so open and so honest with this group.
Couple last things as I leave. At Brian Brackeen on Twitter. I'm spicy. www.blacktechweek.com. We'll be announcing and redoing the site soon, but some of the pictures from last year are there. And in classic culture shift manner, I'm going to leave the stage and I'm going to sit down with you. We're going to participate in whatever we're doing. I'm about to learn. Please come forward. Please come forward for it. And for the rest of the weekend, like I am a participant here this week, like all of you guys. Please come talk to me. Like I was only here for a few minutes. I'm in the crowd with you, and so please see me in that light. Thank you so much.